after Yasumoto has his run-in with the mantis, and she cuts his neck. She barely misses an artery or something like that, and he's kind of coming to, and Redbeard's there attending to him, and he, and this guy has been a total brat to him the whole movie thus far. And the first thing that he says to him is, like, young men are very weak around pretty women. Like, don't beat yourself up about this. Like, let it be a lesson to you, but don't torment yourself about this weakness.
Yeah, you're weak and you were drunk.
Yeah. He's giving him outs. He's offering him pardon. And that's kind of something that Redbeard does throughout the movie with other characters as well. So yeah, I mean, and again, that's Redbeard being very, I suppose, Christ-like. But
well, not so much Christ-like, but maybe, I mean, in the sense that I'm here to save you. Like, you have sinned, but sin and do, like, sin no more and obey, right? Like, in that instance, yeah. But he does make excuses for a lot of people. I think that he understands the condition that, listen, not all of us can be the honorable samurai or be as honorable as the high class society who have the means to afford their honor, or are more likely to use their ways and means and power to skirt the law of honor and the rules. And whereas, and there's a lot of pride and admiration I have for these patients, because even though they have nothing, they have their honor, they have their conscience, they have the self-awareness and self-cognizance to go out of their way and recognize that I may be poor, I may be nothing, but I know what the rules are. I know what honor is, and I know what shame is. I mean, when we see that with the woman and the children trying to come to her estranged father with liver cancer, she confesses just very openly in tears and heartfelt pain that, my mother and I never got along. My husband was a piece of garbage. But then she breaks down and cries, saying, I didn't even build a family altar for my dead mother or my husband. I had done nothing to honor their memory. I have done nothing that is in accordance to the tradition of my people. I am lower than a worm, and all that I wanted to do was to see my estranged father before he died, and I have failed in that. And we see these heartfelt, just broken people confess their sins before Redbeard, who is, at the end of the day, the priest and physician of this hospital. And again, heartfelt confession, a desire to order people and their life towards repentance, and to take care of the sick, the elderly, and the orphan, and to employ them under their care. And we see, these very Spartan conditions out in the middle of nowhere, very, very, very much like a skeet, very much like a monastery, where, you got the bare essentials, and your knowledge is essential, and you're only going to learn by experience and obedience. Even Redbeard calls him out with the liver cancer patient. He's just like, your notes from Nagasaki mean nothing to me, because you don't have anything in your records or anything in your education that will train you for what this man has. Because he tells him, diagnose him. And he's like, stomach cancer. And he's like, wrong. This is liver cancer. Pay very close attention and you'll learn why. And it's a very, again, intellectual humility, as well as that sort of spiritual surrendering of pride and to obey the elder.
I was gonna loop back to that, Prude, because you're right. That is that scene with the man with liver cancer, and if I'm not mistaken, this is essentially the very first sort of, I guess, training session that Yasumoto receives from Redbeard, and it's essentially basically his first, like, his day one lesson in his internship. Redbeard just calls him in here to watch this man die.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that can be done for him at this point. There's no medicine. It's more a medicine that he is administering to Yasumoto, which is sort of your baptism into this clinic is going to be, you're going to sit here and you're going to watch this man die, and you're going to be here. You're going to observe his death.
Well, and that goes back to Paul's letter to the Romans. You are baptized into Christ's death. We put on, we take off the old man and we are born of the new. To live is to die with Christ, and to die with him is an excellent acquisition. But I mean, and again, my frame of reference, of course, is the Orthodox Church. But like, your baptism and your chrismation, that chapter of Romans is read because you are already dead. And so here you are baptized into this clinic. You are baptized into this man's death. You will attend to this man and his death, and you will be with him, and you will witness the sick and suffering of those, and you will be reminded of your call as a physician to heal and to intend to the sick and the suffering. And so this is why, again, like despite Kurosawa's non-Christianity and his love for Dostoevsky, and also the fact that there's not a single Christian element of this movie, very physical, or at least, in terms of symbolism, numerology, or iconographics. But this film is probably his most Christian. Tend to the sick and the suffering, obey thy master, and to humble yourself before all things, that way the master, when he returns, Redbeard, sees you working and not sinning. Goes back to the parable of the servants, God doesn't want to see you just waiting for him to come back. He wants to see you working. And in the same way, Redbeard doesn't want to see you getting drunk and talking to a woman that's going to stab you with a hairpin in the neck. He wants to see you working, and he will help you in your repentance. You have to keep working and obeying. And throughout this film, we see with each vignette, liver cancer, the family with the children, dealing with the magistrate, calling out the pharisaical nature of the magistrate and his money and his concubine in the home, listening to these heartfelt confessions of the sick, suffering, and poor, deathbed confessions, tending to the dying, and at the end of the day, even tending to those that have been abused and have been traumatized by the very nature of our worldly affairs, whether that be prostitution or disease. You have your commandments, heal the sick, aid the suffering, be with the dying. And we see that in each vignette. And of course, that's what makes Yatsumoto's sort of redemption story of overcoming his ex-fiance's infidelity, getting married. It seems so trivial in the end. And it is trivial in the end because obviously Yatsumoto decides to stay with Redbeard and this rural provincial hospital and throw away, again, is to refer back to hymns that we sing, all life's cares now lay aside. Like the marriage doesn't really matter. The shogunate personal physician doesn't matter. It's the call to aid the sick and the suffering and to be with those who really need it.
Yeah, I guess I will say that, the one thing that maybe does matter about the marriage is, Redbeard, it's less monastic. Redbeard, for all we know, correct me if I'm wrong, is not married and doesn't have children, which is part of what gives him a kind of priestly character. He's just sort of devoted fully to his work. And I guess the fact that Yasumoto does get married is sort of, again, I guess it's a bit more Western than it is Eastern, because he's not trying to be a Buddhist. He's still going to be kind of locked into samsara, so to speak. He's getting married. Assumedly, they're going to have a family. Assumedly, those children are going to live and suffer and die. And so he is, I guess, tethering himself to humanity in a way that is different from Redbeard, who is much more of this kind of monk-like ascetic when it comes to his relationship to humanity. He stands outside of it to a certain degree, whereas I think the fact that Yasumoto does get married does embed him more within the community.
Well, I think it's more so for the obligation of his parents than it is anything else. Yatsumoto was not interested at all in this marriage initially at all. It comes around to it at the end of. It feels so. I guess maybe that's my one criticism is that it's forced on Yatsumoto's part, because for us in the West, marriage is a very willing. Will you marry me? Yes, no. Let me ask for your father's name in marriage and things like that. For your hand in marriage, but it's still a very voluntary commitment for life, or as it is traditionally speaking. And you get hopeful that like you're going to find the right gal and it's going to be the way. Whereas, of course, in the East, it's far more arranged. I mean, India,
Right.
Japan, etc. But I mean, like, and so I think he does this out of an obligation to the parents. And because the other family is just like, listen, we've got some dishonor. And there's sort of the predicating notion to it that, like, listen, your ex-fiance, you know, she had a baby with that other man, but because of this dishonor, I want to hold my grandchild, but we have to fix this issue first, which is the issue of dishonor in marriage. Please take my sister's hand in marriage so that I may hold my grandchild, you know, for the first time, and that I can acknowledge him as mine and make this real. And we never see the ex-fiance at all in this entire story, which I think is very fitting. And so we get this just, you know, like honor these agreements. Again, we still have these cultural norms and honor to fulfill. And so we get this wedding, which is, I think, more out of obligation, honor thy father and mother out of anything else. Because, like, I don't think Yatsumoto really loves this chick. I don't think that he's really in it to do it for anything else other than to fulfill these obligations, which I get, fine, right? Eventually you learn. I feel like in arranged marriages, you learn to love them.
Right.
You know, that's the story I've heard from people who are in arranged marriages. Well, like you just make it work. You get to know them. You know, again, it's the whole issue with, you know, dishonoring your parents. You can't ever do that. That's worse than death. So go make it work, and I guess you'll be fine. And they're like, well, yeah, we made it work. I learned to love him eventually. And it's like, that's a strange thing to hear for a guy that, like, well, you learn to love somebody and then you marry them. But so Yatsumoto, I think, recognizes that even if he gets married, he still has that calling to a sort of a priestly order. And so he does it. And I mean, you know, in the Eastern Church, you can be married and be a priest. And so even then, I feel like there are probably some forms of Eastern religions that are also allow you to have a wife or to have obligations in the world, but still serve in some kind of order. And again, it's not a religious order. I mean, he's just a doctor in this instance, but the physician in the story of Redbeard is priest, defender, and physician. And again, you get these three things in which are personified in Redbeard to defend the poor, defend the innocent, and heal the sick. And he, you know, trains Yatsumoto to do that with obedience and humility. And so I think that this brings us now to, we get this lovely intermission for like 3 minutes. That's how you know a film is old, is that you get an intermission somewhere in between.
Like
it's like or Patton, or really any film made before 1970, and then we sort of bring ourselves to the final story, which again is based off of the humiliated, insulted, or the insult and injury, I think is how it's also translated. And we, instead of 13-year-old orphan Nellie, we get 12-year-old Toyo in a whorehouse that is rescued, who is beaten by the mistress, by the madam. And even then, right, you already know you're in a shady place when the first thing is like, listen, you can't use that girl to service others. She's got syphilis. Like, let me take her. She's like, I'd starve. Like, I have no money. What are you doing? You know, that love for mammon, that love for money over basic necessities, like, hey, don't give your John syphilis. Let's go take care of that first. That doesn't matter, you know. Let the nose fall off, but I got to make some cash first.
Yeah. What else? What do you think is unique about that particular storyline, Prude, compared to the other kind of things that Yasumoto has borne witness to at that point?
Well, I think mainly it has a lot to do with children, and it has a lot. And we also see Yatsumoto learn that his master is also capable of just beating the absolute tar out of everybody to the degree of compound fractures where they break out of the skin. And it's just like, you know, and again, we joked about it earlier. It's just like, hey, violence is bad. But Yatsumoto is witnessing the fact that he will go to lengths to defend the poor and innocent that seem violent. You know, I come not to make peace, but I come with a sword.
Right.
And he's willing to do that with his bare hands and just mess up these guys to rescue this little girl. And I think for Yatsumoto, I think what he learns himself is that final piece of humility, because he's assigned to her. Redbeard finally says, "This is your patient. This is your patient, not mine. You take care of her. I will check in on you occasionally, but I will take care of you." And so he tries his best to take care of her. She's got a really bad fever. She's got some kind of infection. She is ill, and she's constantly scrubbing the floors, and she's not well at all. And so she tries to take care of her, and she's just adamant about being just as spiteful and as angry and as obtrusive as possible. She slaps the medicine out of their hands. She spits in their faces. She's refuses food, and she just lays there. Like, she's like, I don't care about you people at all. And in this time frame, right, she's in tattered, awful clothes, and Yatsumoto's trying to take care of her to the best of his ability. And we get this moment where, like, of course, he gives her clothing, a very beautiful kimono, which she does not wear. And she breaks bowls and furniture, she breaks bowls and wastes medicine. And she's guilt-ridden by it. And so she flees after getting a little better. And she wants to, make the money to go pay for the broken things. And Yatsumoto confronts her in town, and he holds her, and he apologizes to her. He says, "I'm sorry. I'm not listening to you. I'm not paying attention to your needs. This is what you were doing. I'm sorry." And she goes and she cries, like just this heartfelt wail of emotional release of God knows how much trauma she's got built into her. And this isn't even on top of the fact that Yatsumoto himself, trying to treat her, he feels like a failure because he doesn't know how to get her to do what he needs her to do. And he himself has this, and this is his emotional sort of climax of his own confession. He says, "I am not worthy to be here. You hate me. I hated you. I wanted to be the shogunate's personal physician. I was going to do all these things, and I'm stuck out here. I can't do my job. I failed you as a physician.
I can't even get a little girl to take her medicine.
Yeah, I can't even get a little girl to take her medicine. She doesn't want to even let me take her pulse. I failed you." And then Redbeard finds out, oh hell, he's sick from trying to save her. And he takes on Otoyo's illness. He takes on the fever. He has healed her by taking on her illnesses, which again, to me, for me, I see Christianity written all over this, where numerous saints throughout the church's history as healers would take on the illnesses of the people they pray for, the people they heal, because rather a holy man take this on for their own salvation and to work wonders in the name of God. And so, yeah, he picks up the disease and she gets better. And I'm sure, of course, the disease is contagious because it's a fever, it's an infection. Like, I'll put on my serious hat for a moment and put on my fedora. But it does illustrate to me, like, oh, you did heal her. You took on her illness from her. You lifted up this burden. And, he makes his confession to Redbeard. And Redbeard is like, no, the story that you were told about why you weren't selected for the shogunate, physician is not true. I heard that and I just played into it. I wanted you here. I wanted you to be a good doctor. And he confesses and he breaks down, and then he has to recover. And to me, that was sort of like, that's the moment for me that really matters, that even though he's ill, Yatsumoto makes this confession and he admits his sins. He admits his feelings. And he's like, I wanted to hate you. I didn't want to be here. I've been such a disobedient little shit. Forgive me, but like, I can't even take care of this girl. Like, I have failed you in every which way but loose. I'm done. And that's it. And then we get, of course, him to recover, and then he gets better and apologizes to Toyo, and they both get their release. He in his ultimate humility, recognizing that he's done really nothing wrong when trying to treat her, but sees her guilt, and he says, I'm sorry. Not you have nothing to be apologize for. I've done all that I can. I'm sorry.
Mm.
And we get this release, and she stays there. She stays at the clinic, and of course the madam wants to come back and get her or whatever, and all the female nurses just beat the shit out of her with, I guess, candles or something wrapped up, because every time they hit her head it breaks. Which is a delightful scene. I'm glad that the women got their comeuppance, but they're like, you're not taking care of her. She's still in tattered rags. And Otoyo goes back with her, and she's like, I have a nice kimono. I have these nice things. These people treat me well. I'm not going back to this fucking whorehouse.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, the women chase her off, and that's sort of the end of that story. But of course, we get the conclusion, which is saving the poor that took rat poison, and the wedding. And again, the last 20 minutes, they're nice stories, but I feel like I've gotten all the good emotional highs I need.
They could
and I'm like,
cut.
wrap this up, Kurosawa. We're good here. Like,
Yeah.
shot, I got the money shot of the emotional catharsis and release and repentance.
Right.
I need to move on.
Well, speaking of